Here is a list of things that people don't know are animals occasionally. And some of these may be kind of obvious for people who are more into like science and nature and stuff, but these are all things that I have seen, whether in real life or in the internet, people not know that they're animals. Like, a lot of people, when they think animal, they tend to think mammal, specifically. Like, cat, dog, horse. Those are all things that people commonly identify as animals, and that's kind of what their brain goes to automatically, so they don't think of some of the less obvious, I guess, stuff. But these are all real instances of things that I've seen people say aren't animals on the internet. So we're gonna go from kind of, I guess, most obviously animal to least obviously animal, starting off with humans. Humans are animals. You're not better than chipmunk. You are also an animal, specifically a mammal. So, humans are animals. Next up is birds. Again, this might be kind of an obvious one, but I've had people in my comment section going, "You're talking about animals, why are you talking about birds?" Birds are animals, they are just not mammals. Next up is reptiles and amphibians. Like, there's the more obvious ones, like snakes, lizards, crocodiles, and then there's the ones that are, I guess, a bit less obvious to be animals, that are like frogs and turtles, and like the more weird ones, like salamanders and axolotls and olms. So all of those, while they may look a little bit weird, they are still animals. In kind of the same vein, fish. All fish are animals. Fish are very diverse and basically don't even exist as a group, but all of them are animals. This includes the, like, more commonly known fish, such as, like, pet fish like goldfish or, like, bettas, as well as, like, the common food fish like salmon or tuna. This also extends to the other fish, like, I don't know, tropical fish, sharks, and even the weird ones like lamprey and hagfish. They are still animals. Fish are animals. Then we get into the slightly more understandable areas of insects. So, like, there's butterflies and, like, ladybugs and dragonflies are all that most people at least have some awareness of being an animal, but there's some that are, like, caterpillars that are, like, that's just weird. As well as lots of bugs that have, like, the insane mimicry, like orchid mantises and stick bugs, where you're like, there's no fucking way that's an animal, that's a fucking leaf. So that's a bit more understandable, but all insects are still animals. In the same vein, arachnids, such as spiders and scorpions. I've had people go in my comments section and in real life being like, no, spiders aren't animals, they're a different thing. And also they get called insects a lot, or bugs, even though they are not insects, they are their own thing. But while being their own thing and separate from insects, they're still in the large category of animals. And getting into the even more understandable, the farther away from human looking that things get, the kind of more understandable it is when people are like, no way that's an animal, but it still is. So worms, like earthworms and flatworms and bristleworms and like tapeworms and shit. Those are still animals. That includes the parasites that people can get occasionally, like guinea worm or tapeworm or pinworm and all that. Those are all worms, but those are all still animals. They are inside you and everything. Potentially, probably not, but they can be. But they're still animals. Worms, all worms are animals. Then we're getting into the things that really don't look like animals to the broader population. Sand dollars, sea stars, and sea urchins, as well as including sea cucumbers. These are all things that people look at and don't automatically go, that's an animal. This also extends to seashells as well. A surprising amount of people don't know that seashells come from living organisms. Like, this is a sea urchin shell that I have. This used to have an animal inside of it. It used to have a sea urchin inside of it. And like this shell, this, actually don't. This might be a conch shell. But this used to have a guy inside of it. There used to be an animal in here. So these guys are animals. If you see them on the beach, keep in mind that they are animals, and if they're in the ocean, they're probably alive. If they're on the beach, they might not be, but always check before you bring seashells home, because I know people are still gonna do it, but just check and make sure that you're not bringing live things, because if you do bring something live home, it will not be when you get there and it'll probably start to smell real bad. And getting into even weirder shit, jellyfish. They're animals, even though they don't have a brain, they don't have like organs and shit, they're still animals. They're just floating around doing their thing. But yeah, they're alive and they're animals, and some of them can really fuck you up. Now these last three are kind of all grouped together, but I'll go through them separately. Sea anemones are animals. Lots and lots of people, I find, think that they are plants. They are not plants. They are definitely animals, and again, some of them can sting you pretty badly. Yeah, that's a guy. There's those tentacles, they are like, they have nerves, they have muscles and stuff. Yeah, it's an animal. Same thing with coral and coral reefs. Lots of people don't know that coral is made up of a bunch of tiny animals. They, again, think it's plants, kind of like seaweed. Even though seaweed isn't technically a plant, I don't think, at least kelp isn't. It's a protist, but that's a whole other thing. But coral and coral reefs, they're a bunch of really, really tiny animals that come together in a colony to form the big, colorful structure that make up coral reefs. So they're not plants, they are animals. And finally, we have sea sponges. Now, we are all familiar with SpongeBob, but for some reason, that doesn't translate over to him being an animal like Squidward and Mr. Krabs and Patrick and all that. Something just doesn't translate, even like, doesn't translate over well to SpongeBob being based on sea sponge. But again, not a plant, not a weird rock. It is a, admittedly, very primitive animal. So, hope we all learned something about what is animal. Yay.